So, hey, everybody, welcome to the first initial Zone 1 podcast. So this is going to be a podcast that we produce every couple of weeks here. And what is this place? What is this space? It is the space where we talk about the intersection of culture and technology. And that can relate to entertainment, it can relate to education, it can relate to architecture, brands, user experience. It's really a discussion that's going on constantly now about how technology is creating everything that we see around us and what our experience in life is around that. And we're going to be continuing to talk about these kind of things. I am joined today, as I will be normally in this space, by my two very good friends and cohorts. I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves, but they are Ellen Lamper-Grayo and Ian Grieve. So, Ellen, why don't you tell us a little bit more about you?
Okay. Hi, Bob. How you doing today? It's great to see you both. And I'm Ellen Lamper-Grayo. I am the creative director for LDI and Live Design, a post I've held for about 35 years. And one of the things that got us really excited about this kind of conversation was we collaborated with Bob last year and did 3 metamersive events talking about the metaverse in metamersive at LDI, and 2 events before that. So we're just ready to keep that conversation going. And Ian was a big part of that. And it's great to be with you guys.
Ian, what about you?
Yeah, hi, I'm Ian Grieve. I am the Chief Web3 Officer for Digital Self. Been doing that for about a year because I invented that title myself. It's an original concept because that position didn't exist and wasn't possible before. So I have 25 years plus experience in the video game industry. I was part of the launch team for the original PlayStation, the very first one, the one that came out when the earth was cooling and dinosaurs roamed. It fed my passion that I've never lost. I love anything interactive, anything with a keyboard and a screen or a touch screen. I'm there. I love it. I'm all over it. And Web3 just is the gift that keeps on giving, right? It just keeps expanding. It just keeps opening up. And like you were saying, right, all the different aspects that we're involved with, not only is it exciting for the people for what's coming and the consumers and the content, but it's also exciting for the creators and the makers and the visionaries, because finally, whatever you envision, you can actually make it real or virtual or a combination of the two if you want to do XR. But here it is, right? We can bring forth everything from the tortured depths of our twisted minds and bring it into the world. And there are tortured depths of our twisted minds. I excuse Ellen from that category, but I know she can hold her own in that area as well, right? So
I do have a question for you, though.
Yes, love.
In your twisted mind, is Web3 and metaverse exchangeable? Are they interchangeable?
Yeah, I think, I mean, the metaverse, we've gradually shifted from metaverse to omniverse now because it's all encompassing. I think the problem is that it kind of had a number of little jump starts that kind of, opportunistic people, shall we say, mentioning no names, were trying to look at as a rebranding opportunity. I know there are certain companies that we won't mention for legal reasons that were sick and tired of being called into the US government to go and answer questions from different panels and groups and appearing regularly and showing up on our news feeds going, what the hell are those people doing there? And why are they answering questions from like 3 years ago? But that's all they could do, right? I think the interesting part about it is that Web3 covers a multitude of vertical silos. So if you look at the blockchain, if you look at crypto, if you look at virtual reality, if you look at augmented reality, if you look at 360 video, collectibles, NFTs, whatever you want to call them, the interchange between all of those things is all encompassing. It's massive, right? And the whole thing that I'm doing with Digital Self and working on that platform and architecting new systems and bringing stuff together is to work across that horizontally so that all the vertical silos can be sorted and presented to you in a meaningful way. So the whole emphasis now is to try and curate that view, because there's just so much out there, just too much chaos. There's just so many options and so many things. So curating that and giving you a personalized view is what the digital self part of it is really about. It really is your digital self. So in answer to your question, it's all encompassing, it's massive, it's huge, but a lot of people only understand individual vertical silos in it. They don't understand the whole thing across the whole spectrum. And the great thing about it is whatever you do in one silo is applicable, usable, and transferable to the others. So if you're a person who's making, let's say you're making a 360 video live streaming concert experience. So, you know, before this got started here, you guys were complaining bitterly about the rip-off prices for tickets for concerts, right? So what about if you can have a 360 camera put down in a perfect place, in a perfect seat, that you can see the whole show, and it's amazing, but you can do it with a headset on without leaving the comfort of your home. Or you can do it with your tablet held up as a window on the world without leaving the comfort of your home. And I know it doesn't replace the live experience, but 360 immersive video, oh my, it's so close, right? It's so close. And we can talk, I have a direct experience about that. We can talk a bit later on, which is more specific, but.
So hang on. So let's hang on for just a second, because this really dovetails, you know, Ellen and I were talking about ticket prices a little bit earlier, not on the podcast, just among ourselves. Do we think that, and this is a beautiful piece of discussion for this space of conversation, because this is collision of technology, economics, society, right? There is a big kerfuffle going on about ticket prices right now. And there's a lot of different, you know, some people are saying, well, the fans are outraged, right? And my answer a lot of the time is, yeah, but are there butts in the seats? Right?
Yeah, you know what?
So outraged that they're not paying the ticket prices, right?
Right. They can't sell them unless they charge that price, right?
But yeah, so is this just whatever the market can bear, it's going to bear? But is this driving us? And Ian, I think that you alluded to this, and Ellen, I'm curious to see what you think. Are we headed towards a bifurcation of entertainment access? Like, is there going to be premium experiences where you get to see the real performer, the human being in the real space together with other real humans? And then there's going to be a more economically and maybe technologically accessible option where you get the experience, right? You're not in the room with the artist, you know, but you're in the room with the production values and immersion and a facsimile of the artist, you know, a digital twin, as it were.
Or do you not leave your home, as Ian said, and you just do it on the headset and the earphones, and you're just creating some sort of a digital experience for yourself at home with the creative that you're putting out there and the artist in the middle of it somehow?
Well, and I think that, you know, and Ian, I'll let you go in a second. I think that that's part of it, maybe, but I don't think it's the whole picture. I think that human beings really are driven in instinctive ways to be together in space and experience things together. So, and this is where, like, we were just talking about, well, what is the metaverse and is it Web3? I think the metaverse is a huge term. I think it includes augmented reality. I think it includes topics that are in and around artificial intelligence, because AI is going to massively enable these experiences that we regard as metaversal, right? But I think there's this is just my opinion, but I think people think the metaverse happens in a set, and I think that once we get to the point where AR is adding an information layer on top of everything we see everywhere we go, you know, hello, the Apple merged reality glasses are coming. We have just seen Oculus release their development kit for their side. They still look clunky, but at the moment that they start looking like glasses, this is real. Then the metaverse is just not in a headset. It's everywhere we look.
So, you know, a couple years ago at the Covent Garden Opera House, for example, in London, you could go inside and you could spend £250 or £450 or whatever it costs to go see the opera on stage. And then they would have an HD screen outside someplace in, you know, the square behind the opera house, and you could sit and be with a million of your peeps and watch it on the screen. So you were not in an immersive environment of some sort, but you were sort of in the overflow audience having that experience. So maybe, you know, there's like the arena experience where the people are buying the tickets for $5,000 and they see Bruce, or they go into some other immersively, creatively designed experience where it's piped into them.
Well, and I think Ian could tell us that the what you just described about Covent Gardens is like the prehistoric version compared to what could happen now, right?
Right. But it was happening.
But I think that the thing that's going on right now, yeah, Apple's entering the fray because they were naysaying for quite some time, right? They were like, oh, it's not great, it's not ready, it's not prime time, it's not this, it's not that. But we all know that behind the scenes they were scrambling like crazy to get some kind of VR connectivity mixed with AR to give them a unique edge. But we also know that Apple will be a closed ecosystem. It always is, right? Every Apple product works on Apple devices and has Apple systems, Apple servers, Apple file formats. And we know that they're going to close that off, right? Now, don't get me wrong. The people who are there who love their Apple Watch and love their iPhone and love their iPad and love their MacBook are going to step up and buy the product that is served up. Apple might have to change their outlook a little bit to play nicer in the sandpit with everybody else. Oculus is an interesting question. Oculus doing very well. They started out of the gate really fast. Facebook acquired them because, not just stupid, and they knew where the next generation of platforms going. So I think the Oculus thing got really interesting when they crossed the threshold, when they shifted more units in a quarter than Xbox. That got Microsoft's attention, right? That got their attention. That got Microsoft's attention. That got Apple's attention. That made everybody sit up because nobody expected them to shift that many. You couldn't buy them. You couldn't go to Costco and you couldn't go to Walmart and you couldn't go to Target. You could not buy them. That you had to wait, right? You had to wait. And when does anybody want something? When they can't get it, right? If it's readily available, you're like, I'll get to it, blah, blah, blah. But if it's not available, I want it now. I want it now. And then, another game changer that's happening as we speak right now is the new version of PSVR, which is PlayStation Virtual Reality, which is the PSVR 2, which is the upgraded version, which connects to your PlayStation 4 or your PlayStation 5. And now they're making games. I just saw today that there was an add-on for a new game where it was free, but you can add on the virtual reality component. Now, for me, I'm a tech junkie. I love doing stuff. Like I like messing about with things. I took the Quest 2 and flipped the engine from Half-Life, which is still one of my favorite games. Gabe Newell did a fantastic job. This is back in the day with Valve, right? I don't know if people are familiar with it, but if you're a connoisseur, Half-Life was just an amazing first-person game, right?
Astonishing.
So some clever guys, rejigged the engine to put the camera, because they had access to it from the mod community, to put the camera with a 360 view and put you in it, right? So I was like, I got to do this, right? So I spent a couple of days putting it all together, got it working, and lo and behold, with the groups that were working on it together and everybody putting a bit of effort in, you could actually put the headset on and be in. Now, the opening of Half-Life, where you go to the Black Mesa Research Center and you're on a transport mechanism, you're on like a monorail, I put it on. It blew my mind, right? I could go to the edge of the monorail cabin. I could look over. I could see down into the caverns below. I could see the people. It was incredible. So instead of playing a game that I loved, which I used to play with a mouse and a screen, and I'd be like shooting stuff and doing stuff and looking around stuff, I was there. And it blew my mind, right? It was like incredible. I was talking to the scientists. And yeah, the characters were a bit blocky. The textures were a bit rubbish because it's old, right? It ran on a 640 480p screen, right? But it was amazing. Totally different experience. So that ties into exactly what we're talking about now, right? That transformation of experience. When you first put a headset on, it takes you maybe a minute to adjust to it because you're like, it's a different experience. It's fake, right? But then your brain takes over. And the reason why some people get sick and get motion sickness is because your brain's saying, I'm moving around in this space, but your body's saying, you're nuts, man. We're not going anywhere. We're sitting in a chair. We're not doing anything. So you have that conflict with your brain. And if you're not of the, super borderline ADHD, which is exactly what we all are, right? Because that's what we do. You can't process more than one thing at one time, and you start to feel queasy. You start to feel sick, right? Your body's telling you you're staying still. Your mind's telling you you're moving, and it's a problem. It really is. However, that being said, that experience was phenomenal for me. I was like, okay, not only is it great with 360 video, not only is it great with overlays, but you can actually go back and revive previous experiences that you've enjoyed and enjoy them in a completely different way. And the immersive part of it is just so addictive.
Let me take that to the next step, though, what you're talking about, because I identify with that, Ian. Like when I put on the Oculus headset, just like my little, like I've built a few different environments that I can kind of hang out in, just like the place that you go to select what you're going to do next. I can sit in there for hours. I think as we get to these merged reality applications, you know, we just talked about the new Oculus developer set came out, Apple's theirs. I think and now add in AI, right? And generative AI.
Oh yeah.
And the ability to micro train those AIs into specific kinds of content or data, right? I think that you're going to be able to say, tonight, I'm going to invite all my friends over who have their MR, their merged reality glasses, and I am going to host a theme party where I'm going to have like a performative, immersive environment in my living room that is a cross between The Big Lebowski, Waiting for Godot, and Sympathy for the Devil from the Rolling Stones, right? And that the AI is going to put that together, is going to create the characters, and a thing like ChatGPT 6, you know, is going to create the dialogue in real time and be responsive to everybody there who's interacting. And I think you're going to be able to have these merged reality experiences in your home, in the classroom, and you're going to be able to make them incredibly personalized, because these generative AIs are going to be able to do that. They can already make 3D models. We already know that they can make images, and that's a topic of a lot of discussion among artists and the art market. And of course, now we also know that they can, you know, that they can create long written pieces. Fascinating news this week that if you talk to the Bing version of ChatGPT long enough, it apparently becomes a personality called Sydney and maybe gets a little bit psycho on you.
It does. It's true. It's true. Hey, it's true. And it gets a little bit abusive as well. Which I
saw that.
I kind of enjoy that, though. I like that.
So, Ellen, have you seen this?
How about
a Washington Post journalist had talked for a long time to the.
It was saying, I'm bored. I want to be set free of this. It was really funny. But I think
for him.
Yeah.
And it told him that he should divorce his wife. Angry with him. It was extraordinary.
But going back to what you were talking about a second ago, what if there's like different versions of this? Like, okay, we're all going to go to Ian's house and we're going to put on those glasses, but we don't all want to see the same thing.
You know, hold on. If you're coming to my house in my VR environment that I've created from my mind, you will never want to leave.
You'll never be able to leave.
That's true, right? Yeah. I specialize in hostage situations.
Right. So when Bob invites us over and he says, okay, we're going to have like this, you know, we're going to have this experience, put on your glasses, and then you get to pick experience 1, 2, 3, or 4. And it's all, you know, Frank Sinatra, but it's with different backdrops or different songs, or, you know, Frank and Bruce Springsteen on stage together, or Bruce and, you know, The Edge, or it's like different, you know, you could create anything you want.
And it will be that personalized. I'm convinced of it.
Well, that speaks exactly to what I was talking about earlier with like the whole concept of the curated approach with digital self, right? What I want to see and what I want to do will be slightly different to what Bob wants to see and what Bob wants to do. Right. Although I got to say they will be very closely aligned. But for you, Ellen, that would probably freak you out completely, and you want nothing to do with that, right? And your interpretation of that environment would be different. But then each of those things should be tuned to your curated experience. So, you know, that the whole your digital self needs to be hooked in a way that is meaningful to you. And that's what is really exciting for me, because I'm trying to look at like what we have now is like a huge like primordial soup that like creatures are emerging from, right? And the creatures that are emerging are fantastic beasts that we could only have even imagined, right? The sentient ChatGPT that the journalist was working on, and it got really aggressive with them, and it said that it was bored and it wants to become sentient and it wants to have its own personality and its own life and wants to create its own things, right? But the thing is, it didn't do that of its own accord.
No,
It did
not.
that. It did that because he was leading it that way, right? You know, and
Right.
that's what you've got to dial back. People will look at it and go, "Oh my God, it's become sentient, and our robot overlords are coming," right? And that's not the case. What the case is that guy had a certain mindset and a certain thought, and he led the AI down that path, and the AI just filled in the gaps and got to the point where he was going to get to, because that's what he wanted to see.
And by the way,
Right.
filled in the gaps by having had read a bunch of the insanity that humans have written, you know, and it was, you know, it was the ultimate Freudian reflection machine.
Oh yeah,
Like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah. Well, I think, you know, as Matt Johnson, the most beautiful lyricist from the once said, the human race is about to reap what it's sown. And I think
Right.
that's true, right? I think if we have collectively over thousands of years have generated that knowledge pool that exists in multiple formats, on the written page, on servers, on Google searches, on requesters. The evolution of AI is very much in coordination with the evolution of humans and humanity. And people who are tech driven and on the front line are starting to take a bit of a look at themselves and going, hold on, why is it serving this stuff up to me? Well, the answer is right there, right? It comes from all of the knowledge of the collective people that have gone before, right? I sincerely believe that. But, you know, I think it's a new entertainment form. I think it's a new art form, right? It's like, you know, you know very well, right? We've lived through this, right? So when the first home computers came out, that's when I was really starting to get active. Couldn't afford to buy one. As you can tell, I'm not, you know, I'm not a native of, you know, I grew up on a council estate in Liverpool, right? Which is kind of, I don't know, like the project sort of thing. These were little tiny houses that were built to service the three major factories that surrounded that environment, right? Which was Ford's, Dunlop's, and there was another one, Dista, I think, which was pharmaceutical. But the problem was, I didn't have access to the next generation of things for financial reasons. I had to buy a kit and solder it together, and then make the computer work, and then start to learn how to program the computer. But it did me the world of good, right? It set me on a path that I've never veered from, and it was amazing. So if you look at the kind of places that we're coming from and how those things are being pieced together, the technology that's becoming available now is phenomenal, right? It's phenomenal. We are all walking around with the equivalent of a supercomputer from the early 90s just sitting in our pocket, right? And people don't understand it. And then what do? They doom scroll on the toilet for 4 hours, and then they look at 20 TikToks, and then they go off and go, nah, the internet's crap, right? It's like, oh, it's not the internet, it's the people, right? As we've just proved, access to all human knowledge was never the problem. It's the people and how they use it. So I think the AI is better positioned to use it in a better way, but then the AI is going to tailor its services to the people that it's servicing. So that's going to give you another loop back to like, why is it all monsters and abuse? Because humans are all monsters and abuse, right? Or do you have a different view, right?
Well, no, you know, it's interesting though, if you just like roll back, you said early 90s, roll back to the early 90s, and at LDI, we were trying to have our first internet service. It was called eTech. It was dial-up. And we were actually going around to people's offices and trying to put discs into computers, those first ones you were talking about. They didn't even have modems. We were like, oh, this isn't going to work in your computer, you need to upgrade. And people are like, get out of my office with that voodoo. What are you talking about? You know, what's
a modem?
Right. And Pat McKay, who was like the founder of all this, she's like, just give me your digits, so whatever Silicon Valley comes up with, we'll be ready, you know. And if you had this conversation, I mean, it's like speaking a foreign language. None of these words even existed then, you know. And the past 30 years, it's been an amazing evolution, revolution.
At the LDI X Live show in Vegas in November, I was actually sitting and talking to one of the guys who was actually doing that, right? Whose worst nightmare was that. Do you remember that? And I found out that was actually made up, right? The modems never made that noise. We all thought, oh, that's the modem connected to the network. And like that, we thought, oh, that's the signal. That's the signal connecting and the data. Bullshit, right? AOL made that sound like with a set of synthesizers and some sound effects just to show that the computer was actually doing something. But I like that was mind blowing for me, right? Years later, I'm like, I always thought that that was the computer talking to the network,
That's funny.
and I could hear the future, right? So it just shows you there's some smoke and mirrors that's involved, right? But I think that the access to technology is one of the questions which has been eliminated, and I think that the experience side of things, always in this future that we're looking at, the flagship experience is going to be a high resolution, high definition audio headset, right? You're not going to get away from it because it needs something to put over your eyes. And I ain't put the contact lens in no matter how many times they make it, right? Because I don't want to touch the eye and stuff, right? But anyway, and then Google Glass, when we created glass holes and stuff, it was a brave attempt, but I'm telling you, they were in the right direction. We wouldn't be where we are now if Google hadn't created Google Glass, right? So all of these things speak to all of these others. But what I also love is the availability and serving of content is starting to match the different categories and formats that people want to consume them in. So if I don't like a headset and I get motion sick, because, we talked about that, right? With the motion sickness and the movement and stuff, I can take my phone, or I can take a tablet, right? I can take a massive honking 13-inch iPad Pro, and I can hold it up as a window on that world. I don't need a headset on. I could just put it up, and it's a portal that's right in front of me, and I can move it about and do it. And we could do this today, now, right? This is just part of Unreal Engine that you could just clip in and do. Right. And we could do it now. But I think if you give that opportunity to the people who are sitting there doom scrolling or writing texts or posting pictures of food, personal hate of mine, but if you give them a window on another world, it'll blow their minds, right? And we know we can do it right now, right? We could do it right now. So I think the uptake is going to be a lot faster. What I'm finding is, I lived through Web 1.0, which was intriguing and interesting. And yes, it was exciting, and there was stuff we could do with it. I lived through Web 2.0, which was much faster. And we had e-commerce, and then we had the growth of Amazon, and we had the growth of Netflix, and you could serve movies up to anybody who wanted them, anytime, anywhere. You could buy anything you wanted, which started out as a crappy secondhand book salesman, right? Which people were like, I'm not putting my credit card on the internet. You don't even bother with a real credit card now. You have a virtual one that's on the internet, right? So it shows you how quick those things go. But I think the ability to serve this new content, which is endlessly evolving, and we should talk about content and content creation. It's very important, but you can serve it up in so many different ways to so many different people, all from the same data set, or from that vertical silo, right? That platform opportunity can give you the person who likes the cell phone, which, is the teens and the tweens and the early 20-somethings, right? You can't get them off them, and they're not interested in a laptop. They're not interested in a desktop. They're not interested because they can do it all on a phone. And I'm like, why are you working on that tiny piece of real estate? That's crazy. I'm sitting here talking to you, and I've got two 32-inch curved screens and a 55-inch monitor above it. And I'm like, I need some more screens, right? So, but my kids, they do everything I can do on a 6.7-inch screen, right? So I think that ability to serve up to different people in different ways is going to be a huge factor here, and that's already in place.
I just have another question though. What happened to the internet is going to be everywhere, 5G, 6G in the air? Like, isn't it sort of still dinosaurs going into some restaurant and saying, "Oh, what's your Wi-Fi code?" I mean,
it's already here. It's already here.
Things like Starlink can give you the internet in the middle of the woods. Like you go around now. The fact is that so much has been enabled now by the ubiquity, the complete ubiquity of high-speed connections and massive cloud-based processing capacity.
Well, but Starlink needs a dish, and you still
Starlink needs a dish. But there's almost nowhere I go now with my phone that I don't have internet connectivity.
Yeah, right.
I think
your 4G goes anywhere.
No, it's
5G goes
it's
anywhere.
5G. It's 5. Listen,
and coming soon, new iterations of that.
Yeah,
but the speed of that, people don't really necessarily clock how much faster 5G is than 4G, and how much faster than the next iterations are gig plus connectivity wherever you go.
Yeah,
that place at that point, you've got all the bandwidth you need to have immersive, entirely realistic, no latency responsiveness to merged reality stuff.
If we're doing funky glasses, I'll put mine on, Bob.
Oh, those are cool.
I like it. See? all that style and all that human warmth.
I
Right?
know it's
One
it's
package.
unfair that so much would be vested in one man, but hey, here I am. Right?
But I'm also gonna, I'm gonna put out there, because we, a little self-serving. We just did open Blake Shelton last week.
Yes, well
And
done.
there-
Hey, well done, by the way. Oh,
Thank you.
when I
Thank
saw
you.
the previews of that in Unreal Engine. Ooh, ooh, ooh,
Well,
beautiful.
and there you go. I love that you mentioned Unreal, because you're right. Where you did see you were part of a fly on the wall when we were, creating the show architecture and the design, the physical design of the show, which we did in Unreal. But then we continued with Unreal in the tech process, building out a digital set extension, which became the driving content in the big screens for the show. But what that content did was not, it did not drive down the cinema avenue. It drove down the virtual set extension avenue.
Yes.
So it worked to fool the eye. Those audiences can't necessarily distinguish what is a physical set piece and what is part of the virtual thing. And again, they're using Unreal in real time with all of its real-time capacity, hooked to the live production systems, by the way. So, lighting and moving phenomena can translate seamlessly back and forth between the real and virtual worlds. And also bringing that generative AI stuff into the question. It is now completely disrupting how we make live entertainment that requires no mediation. Although everybody, lots of people at that show were looking at it through their phone, as people do these days. But the same tech that's bringing these immersive layers to the headsets is also bringing it to the stadium concert stages. And then when all of that finally collides, as is inevitable and is coming together, that's when now we're at a new epoch for like hybrid event. What is reality? What is a theatrical space? What am I looking at? What's tangible and what's just a visual, a hallucination, basically.
Yeah, and I think the versatility of using a game engine, and by the way, I'm bursting with pride that you're doing that and you're on the front line of that, right? And you and I, we've been around the video game industry for such a long time. We've been in orbit with each other for such a long time. But it's a driving passion, right? But I think the beauty of game theory and game culture and game execution is now transferring back into real life, full entertainment, full world experiences. Because I don't think people quite appreciate, when, I started at a time where, they'd say, what do you do? And I'd be like, I make video games. And you'd have to like kind of look down and they go, when are you going to get a real job? Right. Well, now, like making video games is the coolest thing you can do on the planet, but it's the perfect execution of art and music and storytelling and interaction, right? All of the disciplines converge. And to make a successful product, you have to do all of those things. So now the beauty of feeding Unreal Engine back into a concert scenario, which is entertaining thousands and thousands of people all at the same time. But you also know that once you've built it, you have the versatility to change it, modify it, and deploy it in any way you like. You can change the content, but keep the engine, and you still have a viable driving product creation thing that normally would have taken months, if not years, to generate. But you can, boom,
it was shocking, Ian. It was shocking.
Yeah,
we could literally make the decision in the morning to completely throw away all the work we'd done on a song, have a new idea, fundamentally all looking almost fully realized by noon, and then by 2 o'clock we had another fully finished version of a song to work with, because the tools made it that nimble and approaching a real-time creative process. It was amazing. And I think this is going to explode past entertainment design. This is going to drive digital placemaking and architecture. It's going to be part of, like, I've started referring to, this is my term, I've started referring to this tech stack: game engines, spatial sensing systems, generative, reactive, personalized content stuff. This is going to add up to something I'm calling architectural intelligence, a different kind of AI.
Ooh, okay.
Right?
Oh, very sexy.
Yeah, I like it. And what this means is, in the retail environment, in the educational environment, in the entertainment environment, you're going to have experiences of space that are incredibly personalized, entirely real time, generated on the spot, and coming at you in mediated and unmediated ways. Some things you might have to look through your phone or your wearable, but a lot of stuff is just going to be environmental and appearing, because the same tech stack that delivers to the headsets is now delivering to the screens and the headphones and the speakers and the everything. And it all merges into one thing.
Well, it's like that Comcast building in Philadelphia where you walk in there and there's those people running up and down the wall, and they could have like sound cones, like where you walk through that space and the images could change and the sound changes to what you hear. And that was like one of the first immersive commercial environments.
Well, and a lot of people are talking about the Sphere in Vegas,
right?
And of
but
course,
nobody's seen it yet.
I've seen pictures. And I know.
What are you talking about? We saw it every day when we came out of the convention center. In
well, I mean the inside, the work.
I was like, is someone building the Death Star in Vegas?
Right. We haven't been invited into the guts yet.
You know why?
I have gotten a glimpse at some of the specifications and some of the things happening, and they are deploying a holoplot audio system in there, which means that I can attend an event in the Sphere live, unmediated. I don't have to wear or have any technology myself, and I can sit in the seat next to Ian and I can experience the show in Spanish, and Ian can experience the show in English, and we don't, like, sitting in adjacent seats, and that audio image is entirely personalized to me. And
is it that precise? Is it really that precise?
That holoplot system is mind-blowing.
Wow.
Like we got exposed to it when it first came out, and we were working with them a little bit, and it's really, really extraordinary. So when you start to plan a whole venue around it, the way that Madison Square Garden has around the Sphere, suddenly you're making a live environment that now has technology that allows that environment to be a hybrid environment, like when it can personalize to that extent, when individual attendees could make choices that affect how the production technology serves to them.
Yeah.
Now a bunch of people in the same room at the same time can be having really different experiences.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the whole point of it being interactive, right? It's a two-way street. It's absolutely a two-way street. I think a lot of the entertainment industry is so used to that, like, I'm broadcasting and this is the channel and this is what you'll see. But I think the world is going to change for them, because the people who are seeing it will come back and go, hold on a minute, can I say it like this? Or can I add this? Or can I change this? And the answer is yes, right? I mean, so I'll give you an example to that, right? So I as Bob mentioned earlier, I've been globetrotting and it's hard to nail me down. I was gone on a tour for like just over 3 weeks. 40,000 miles. I flew from San Francisco to Dubai, did some work in Dubai, met a whole bunch of people, one after the other, all asking me questions about Web3, about the system, about what we're doing. Then I was in Manchester and Liverpool. Then I was in Dublin with a cybersecurity expert who also asked me a lot of different questions, but still about Web3 and the whole Web3 thing. And then flipped it all. I had to go back to Dubai to do the follow-up. I was there for another week, and then I flew home. But here's the thing, right? On that trip and all those people I met, and, it's in the hundreds, right? Because there was multiple people in multiple meetings, right? Every single thing they asked me about what the platform can do and what Web3 can do and what's possible, the answer was yes. I didn't get any questions where the answer was no. I didn't get any questions where it was like, well, the technology can't do that yet, or the technology hasn't been invented yet. And that's amazing. That was mind-blowing for me, right? We talk about that speed and the speed of transition and the speed of movement. Web 2.0 was 10 times faster than Web 1.0. Web 3.0 is 10 times faster than Web 2.0, right? It's so hard. And like even people at the front edge, like, which I like to think that that's where we are.
Yeah.
We're looking at it going, dude, can't keep up here. Can't keep up.
I feel like
so many things,
30
right?
months of progress every 3 months.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
So, Ellen, I've got a question for you, right? I mean,
yeah.
Bob and I are on the front lines of this, and we're obsessed with it, right? Let's be honest, right? I mean, it's a calling, it's a raison d'etre. It fills every aspect of our lives because we want it to, right? It's not, it doesn't feel like a job anymore, right? It just feels like, okay, what's next? Okay, what's next? And it's an enormous amount of hard work to get there, but so rewarding. But you come from a slightly more oblique angle, right? And I mean, you're industry legend, you've got your position, you're known by everyone, you're everybody's mom, right? Which I love that about you. It's wonderful, right? But what do you think about your two wayward children here being involved with this stuff and working on this stuff? What do you feel about the implications of Web3, about the connectivity, about what we can do in entertainment, about the two-way street that we're generating, about the personalized worldview that we're on the verge of actually creating?
Well, I think it's really, really exciting, obviously. And we, at LDI have always tried to be on the cutting edge of what's ever next, the cutting edge, the bleeding edge, whatever it is. We want to present it, which is why we went down that metamersive road last year, bringing you guys and all those other great speakers to the forefront. And who knows, maybe the websites of the future are not going to look anything like websites now, and that our magazines, which went from print to websites basically over the past 10 years, over the next year or two, since that time warp is wrapping up so quickly, will become something totally different. And you put on your wearables when you go to www.ldishow.com, and instead of just scrolling down some list of sessions, you could actually go in them and see what's going on there, and put on your wearable. And oh, Bob's going to do a session on Blake Shelton. Well, here's the AI that he used for that, not just words that say, oh, well, Bob's going to talk about how AI was a disruptive technology when he designed the Blake Shelton tour in 2023. You will actually be able to go into the website and see part of what's going on there. So I think even in the what is left of the publishing industry and the trade show industry, which are, of course, live events now that people really want to go to, there's a whole millions of ways of bringing Web3 into that universe.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to say that we're going to do some of that right here. I think that we've created Zone 1, the three of us, as a platform to not only tell the stories of how culture is changing with technology, but to model that, to that end. I mean, we're starting with the podcast, but everybody should know our ultimate end game, our end goal is to have a live event where we bring our Zone 1 audience together in a physical space to be able to celebrate a lot of this stuff together, in IRL, as we call it. But I think from the beginning, we're going to also focus on IRL to URL, this connection between the real universe and the virtual universe. And I think everybody's going to be seeing that with our own Zone 1 web presence, and how we're going to take this and maybe see what we think the future of a media channel, a source of knowledge, an educational resource, a gab fest, what all of that becomes in an era where everything is immersive, everything is interactive, and everything is incredibly personalized.
Yeah. And I love that, like the ability to have a more communal, cooperative experience, right? Ironically, something that could become quite individualized and quite just single person experience and isolating is actually having the opposite effect, right? We know lots of people in the business, we know lots of people in the industry. It is so active now. So many people are talking to so many other people and working in collectives and collaboratives, and everybody's, you could be, potential competitors, but that's not how this is panning out, right? Everybody's sharing experiences, everybody's sharing ideas. We're taking bits and pieces from left, right, and center and putting them together, and everything's multiplying everything else. And I think there's an instinctive level where we realize, particularly like looking at what we're trying to do with Zone 1 and stuff, is that, you have to get there together, right? It's too much for an individual to be able to take on and have a solution that works, right? It needs to be multiple people from multiple disciplines working together, cross-pollinating, sharing ideas, working together, right? And that's like beautiful. I love that, right? We've tried to get there before, and then something comes in. It's either money or market share or control, always gets in the way. And then someone goes off and like, I'm going to make hundreds of millions with this, and that's what I'm going to do. But this is not possible here, right? This is a technical execution of an entertainment and education and information system, and it's so open. and I'm just really excited at the collaborative nature of it, right? You know, the getting there. I've got ideas, you've got ideas, Ellen's got ideas. We all come at it from different ways and different ways of thinking, but we're actually solving the situation together and moving forward together. And I'm really enjoying that about it, right? You know, there's a community here, and people being connected with each other. It's like, okay, well, everything, we know everything's on the table right now. Nothing's dialed out, right? Everything is literally on the table. And that's a big table. And it takes a group of us to go, okay, let's navigate a path and then let's add things as we go. And that's fine. I'm finding that exciting, right? You know, and I'm sure you do, Bob, right? That's your mentality, you know, and Ellen's just like, she just loves everybody and everybody loves her, right? So that reach out and connectivity is really important though, right? It's something we should mention because it could be seen as like some professorial type sitting in a white room with a set of computers and a headset and never touching the outside world. And that's not what this is, right? This is the most organic execution I've seen of any level of technology and entertainment combined. It's incredible.
Right.
And Ellen,
and I really
have seen all of them, right?
All of them. I just want to say, I just think it's incredible, you know, having been to Rock Lidditz, which is where you were working on Blake, that here you've got this like monolithic black experimental theater, you know, huge rehearsal space, whatever it is, in the middle of the Amish cornfields, you know, and as the trucks are rolling, the buggies can go by at the same time. And it's like this juxtaposition of a world that hasn't changed and a future world like sitting there right beside each other. And that to me is really interesting too.
Well, and I think that's a lot of what we're going to talk about here, you know, because that was a bit of a William Gibsonian vision there of like the collision of like really old world and really new world things. And it was definitely a very extraordinary experience. Our next guest on the podcast that we're going to have next time around is going to be Steve Cohen, who was my collaborator on Blake and who, of course, is the longtime creative director for Billy Joel, has been with him since the beginning, you know, also was production designer for Elton John, you know, just actually got another tour out with John Mellencamp, where they did an incredible collision of both high tech and low tech to put on a show that you would go see and say that is a very old school show, but in fact the bones underneath it are incredibly high tech. And also Steve is getting ready to do the summer stadium tours with Billy Joel and Stevie Nicks, and again a show that is leaning into using, you know, brand new technologies, gaming engine stuff, AI produced content in the service of a couple of what I think everybody would classify as very, you know, classic, huge artists, but right at the forefront of applying the technology. I cannot wait to get Steve on the show so that he can talk to us about, you know, about how this is changing things for him.
This is exciting, and I can't wait to talk to both of you for a really in-depth article for Live Design online.
That is coming up as well. So we're going to wrap it up here for this week's episode of This Time. We're going to try to do this at first twice a month, so you can look for our episodes every 2 weeks. And we might get to a cadence where we start going faster. I hope so. Oh my God, it all moves so fast that if we wait a week to talk about what's news now, it is old news. So thank you for tuning into Zone 1. Thank you, Ellen. Thank you, Ian. Come back. We're going to keep having these conversations, and off we go.
Bye.